So what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? If you're on this call, it's basically because you're looking into investing into real estate, whether it's residential or commercial. We're here with Javier Zaide from PRMG Dadeland. He's a branch manager.
Hello, everyone.
With William Colas. He's one of the leading investors in Miami, along with Osmany Mondaca from NXT LVL Realty. They're going to share a little bit about their experience and what they feel you should be doing to get into the investment market and how you can better yourself in the real estate business, okay? So I'm going to go over a few questions that we have lined up just so that they can give everyone a quick overview of what they feel you should know first. The first thing we're going to go over is basically different kinds of ways to invest in real estate. I don't know which one of them is going to, take this question first, but we basically want to know what are the different ways to invest. Maybe William, do you think you can start off with that?
Sure. Well, we know that there's two different types of property in real estate. There's residential and there's commercial properties. And I think we would approach both of them sort of similar, but at the same time, the strategies you would use for each would be a little different. And, Javi, Ozzy, if you guys want to step in and say something, please do so. But, on the residential side, you would have your normal, fix and flips where you buy a piece of property, fix it up, put it back on the market and sell it. You could become a landlord, buy a house, put a tenant in it, lease it out. And then on anything that's 4 contiguous units or less, so duplex, triplex, quadplex is also considered residential, and you could buy that, lease it up, and hold tenants. And then on the commercial side, I think for the purpose of this call, I think multifamily would probably be the extent of what I'll talk about, because industrial and office probably is not right for this. But multifamily is anything over 4 units, and whether it's residential or commercial, if you're investing to hold the property, you're going to buy it based on the cap rate or the capitalization rate, and that's essentially the rate of return you would get on your investment. For example, if you buy a piece of property for $100,000 and at the end of the year, you're left with $6,000, that's after paying all expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance, debt service or mortgage if you have one. Let's say you're left with $6,000, that means that you bought that piece of property at a 6% cap. And that's typically what investors will look at when buying an investment property is that cap rate. And the higher the cap rate, the better deal you're getting. So
kind of your ROI, right, William? Your return on your investment.
Correct.
And, if we have any bankers in the room, we know that you don't get those kind of returns on your investment by leaving that money in the bank, right? William and Javi?
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think any bank, not even the new online banks, most of these online banks are giving a lot better returns than your Chases, your Bank of Americas, and your Wells Fargos of the world. But not even there, you'll get these returns. You'll never get a 6% in any bank.
Exactly. So to add a little bit to what William said, there are lots of different ways to invest in real estate. These are some of the basic ones that he went into. And you have to do the ones that you feel comfortable, but again, you have to start somewhere. And, I'm sure Javi, and as the questions progress, we'll talk a little bit. Also, I saw a question pop up that says, what's a good cap rate? Well, any good cap rate, it's more than what you're making with your money at the moment. So if you're making 1% in a CD, and you can get a cap rate of 6%, then I think the math adds up. But it's also important when you're getting financing too, right, Javi?
And I'll touch a little bit on the financing. I just want to touch a little bit on what Will said and what you said a little bit as well. From my experience investing, I feel you're more your more demanding areas. So I'm going to name an example. If we have, Miami-Dade, anybody from Miami-Dade and Broward here that's a little familiar, you go purchase a property to hold, because obviously right now we're talking about holding properties. You purchase a property to hold in Coral Gables, your cap rate might be a little bit smaller or a little bit less than if you go and purchase a property to hold in Miami Gardens, to give you an example. The demand is a lot stronger in Coral Gables because of pride of ownership, because of the investors wanting to get in there and do different developments and different ideas into the community. So that's been my experience, guys, and I don't know if it's been yours as well. I've seen the cap rates in a little bit Miami Beach, for example, Coral Gables. Your cap rates are a little bit smaller than your cap rates if you go in and you invest into your suburbs or your Homestead or your West Kendall areas and things like that. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, so I think I don't want to jump ahead. I know Manny's got some great questions for us. Sticking to the first question, what are the different types of investment pieces in real estate? And you have your residential, which is anything up to 4 units, and that includes condos, single family, and even multifamily under 4 units. And then you have your commercial sectors, which is anything over 4 units. And then you could talk shopping centers, and that's a little bit more advanced. And then we have, your flips, where you buy a property and you try to rehab them and turn them around, or maybe even wholesale them pretty quickly. And then we have our long-term holds for rental income. So, Manny, is that pretty good, what you're looking to get?
Yeah, that's great. So how does, like, someone like me, I don't own any investment properties, I'm currently trying to save up whatever money I can. How does someone even get started? What's the first step?
All right. Go ahead, jump on that.
Yeah, I think I could jump on that one. So obviously, if you're an investor starting off, there's different types of financing, and there's creative financing that we could do in order to get you your first investment property for you to purchase. We require through a regular Fannie Mae, which is our regular banking guidelines, we require a 15% down payment in order for you to purchase an investment property. Okay, so easy numbers, whatever sales price you're looking at, you multiply it by 15%, and that's the money that you need to have saved for your down payment. Okay, $100,000 property, you need $15,000 to give as a down payment. Okay, so for you to get an idea, Manny, once you start saving, try to save it as a goal to save at least 15%, whatever you're doing. Okay, that's for a single family residence. In order to buy a multifamily, anything less than 4 units, remember everyone, Will said that anything less than 4 units is residential, anything over 4 units, then that becomes already commercial. And commercial guidelines are a little bit different. I know we have an expert, with us here, but we won't get into the commercial yet, financing. But to purchase an investment property, which is more than 1 unit, you'll need 75% loan to value or 25% down. So as a single family, you'll need 15% down. As if it's more than 1 unit, so 2 to 4 unit, then you'll need 25% down, man. So for you to have an idea on your investments, that's what you need.
Yeah, Manny, and if I get a chance at it, I'm going to try to get it a little bit more basic for those individuals who are wanting to get into it, and maybe things seem a little bit overwhelming, and maybe that goal seems a little further out than it can really be. Investing, by the way, Osmany Mondaca, founder of Next Level Realty and the broker. Not only am I an investor as well, but I help a lot of individuals get into investment properties. So when I have a consultation with somebody just exploring the idea, I like to see where their comfort level is, and what are their goals. And I just tell them, the first step in getting into investing is to say, this is a good idea. This is something that I should do for myself and for my family, for my financial well-being. So that's going to be your first step. Set that goal, put that dream board up, put it out in the universe. Say, I need to invest. And then, we'll sit down, or you sit down with who you feel comfortable with, and have a consultation and explore some of those different avenues that Javi spoke about and William did as well. and see which one meets your goals in investing.
Great. Okay. I'll take note of that. My next question was basically, how does someone even find an investment property? You know, what would you consider the best avenues to look into to find a property that you can consider a good investment?
All right, you directing that one to anyone?
Whichever one of you guys is willing to answer it, you know.
Go ahead, Ozzy. I think that's a good one for you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. So the question is, where do you find these properties? Well, these properties are out there everywhere. You know, we have as available to us online, which is a great way to do research and doing these things. You can find some of these properties on the court steps, buying them at auction. You can find them through word of mouth. But, you know, that all comes back to where your comfort level and your experience is in investing and what your goals are. So I suggest that if you're fresh and new, and this is Investing 101, work with a trusted real estate professional. Yeah. And that way they can guide you to where your goals are. And they have access to these platforms, and they're going to better guide you to make sure that you don't run into any problems along the line with maybe some title issues or anything that lack of disclosures in a property. And it just kind of guide you that direction. As your comfort level in investing goes up, then you can explore some of the other avenues that I mentioned. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's also, you know, don't think you can do it all yourself. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to partner with someone else when you're trying to do investments. You know, two heads are better than one. So that's what I would add to this. You know.
Okay. And what would you guys consider as a good investment? And how do you determine what's a good investment and what's not a good investment?
Well, Javi, you're an investor, man. What do you look for? What's your comfort zone, Javi? I'm dying to listen to your advice as well.
So I personally always separate my investments into two categories. My first category is my long-term investments. That's my residual income. That's what pays eventually my mortgage. That's what pays my car payment. That's what pays, you know, are your monthly you know, bills. So that's my long-term investments, and I do my best to at least purchase one of those a year. That's always been my goal. My goal is to purchase one long-term investment because you know when you invest, you got to have a plan. So I have a 10-year plan to generate $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, whatever it is. But you need to be able to do the math and figure out exactly how you will get there. So every year I do my best to purchase one long-term investment, and then you have the flips, which is the other investing that I do, which I know Ozzy and Will, you guys have become pros at it. I unfortunately haven't done a flip in about 8 to 10 months. But then you have your short-term investments. So that's your quicker money. That's your investments where you know you'll make X amount of percentage based off of sorry guys, my handyman. Based off of what you're investing, what capital you have, but you'll be able to get a return on that. So whenever I look at my long-term investments, I won't do anything if it's under, and again, this is not a set rule, and this is just my rule. I won't do anything under a 7.5%. So that's usually the number. I try to get 8%. 8% is always my goal. If it's in a good area, or if I see a long-term value in it, then I'm willing to play with something a little bit less. But I would rather sacrifice the area and get a little bit of a higher cap rate than not. And then when I do my short-term investments, I've seen flips where people double their money. And I think that's impressive. That's amazing. But I think anytime I could get 20 to 25% return on my flip, it's something that I would strongly consider. So those are my percentages based off of what I invest into every time I look into something.
Gotcha.
Will, I think there's something that maybe each of us could chime in, because I think each of us has a different perspective on their goals. You want to chime in on that one, Will, and then I'll finish up? Sure.
So, you know, very similar to what Javi said on, you know, and all I'm doing currently at the moment is flips. You know, I'm trying to make 20% on my money. So, you know, if I buy a piece of property, but we buy a piece of property at $200,000. We want to net, after all expenses and everything, 40. So I mean, that's the, I mean, I think that's the bare minimum I like to go in at. There's too many variables that can go sideways when you're, buying a piece of property with minimal inspections and some unknowns there. So I think 20% is a good number.
Yeah. So in my case, I mean, wanting to get into investing, I knew that investing is a good idea. I mean, we all, kind of common sense knowing that, and being in real estate and not having access to maybe a retirement or 401k and those things was kind of my motivator to do it. And my idea was to, start buying some long-term plays so I can maybe leave one for each of my kids. And that's where I started feeling comfortable investing at first. Some of these, when you buy in the long term, you want to look at the cap rates and those kind of things, but you also want to know that when you get in now, might not be the ideal time. Maybe the numbers don't all add up, but if you're holding long term, those cap rates go up, and the property values go up. And if you take loans, the tenants paying down the principal on those loans, so it kind of compounds on itself. So that was my kind of goal. Flipping is exciting. I feel comfortable doing the flipping now. We just congratulations, Will. We just closed a flip today, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Congrats, guys. That's a good way to say it, Ozzy. It's exciting.
It's exciting, guys. Watch all the shows and everything. And yes, the reward can be high, but the risk is also high. And there's a lot of variables you can't necessarily control. When you're working with flips, it's always easier to work when you have a little bit more cash, because I'd like to hear Javi, maybe it's a question Manny has, how flipping and financing can affect your bottom line and getting qualified and all those things. But that's where I'm at right now. And, my goal is eventually to start, venturing out to the multi-family 8, 10, 12 unit buildings where, I can control one piece of property, one parcel, versus having it spread out everywhere.
We actually got a good question here on the chat. What would be the longest time you should take on a short-term investment? 1, 2 years? What would be the longest time you guys would consider?
Will?
I don't short-term. I don't like to get, especially in the economical environment we've been in over the past 3 years or so, but I wouldn't like to get in anything that's more than like 4 months. I'd say 4 months. 1 to 2 years is just too long.
Yeah, when we say short term,
1 to
2 years seems long term to me. Short term for me means definitely under a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. So I try to always calculate, and correct me if I'm wrong. Whenever I do a flip, I try to estimate more or less construction and remodeling and everything will take roughly between 3 to 5 months. And I say 5 months, and that's my cushion month. I try to do it in 4 months. So 3 is my bare minimum. I wish I could, remodel a property in 3 months. It never works out. You plan to do it in 3, and it never works out in 3. 4, it's usually the good time. And then if a complication happens, you're at 5 months. And then I always estimate you'll have the property in the market for about another month and a half. And then it'll take about another month to close if that person's looking at financing. So I'm thinking 6 months is my time frame. Whenever I purchase a property to flip, is usually how long it takes more or less for you to turn your money. So that's my calculation when I do my flips.
All right.
Yeah, and I agree. And this will be a little bit more advanced. And maybe we can continue these conversations if we want to in the future. But you got to take into consideration something that is important in your market, Javi, is seasoning on a property. So when you buy these properties, they need to be seasoned under your name for a certain amount of time before they get qualified for like an FHA loan or something like that. So short term is definitely for me. 3 to 6 months is what I like to do my flips in.
All right. So my next question would be, you come across properties that are foreclosure, short sale, or distressed. What's really the difference? What would you guys recommend? I shy away from, or maybe look for. What do you guys recommend?
So I'm gonna jump on this one first, Will and Javi.
Yeah.
It's exciting, I use the word exciting, right? Because we watch a lot of these shows on TVs, and we like to focus on the exciting part, and sometimes we forget, the risk that comes into it. So foreclosure is exciting. Wow, property is going in foreclosure, opportunity, boom, light bulbs and stuff. Foreclosure is a process. Every state has a process. In Florida, it's a title state. So the owner owns the property until the day the judge says they don't. So even if they're behind on their loan and they are in the foreclosure process, or they've been served with a lis pendens, which is Latin for the first steps in a foreclosure in 90 days. So when you go on Zillow and you see a property as foreclosure and you're like, I want to buy this property for $130,000, and it's worth $400,000, that's what they owe, that they're getting foreclosed for. Doesn't mean it's on the market. Doesn't mean that you're going to come up with $130,000 and then you're going to sell the property. So I would suggest, guys, Real Estate Investing for Dummies sounds silly, but it's a great book to learn a lot of these terms and to get a lot of the differences. There's also opportunities in short sales. REO is called real estate owned when it actually already went to the foreclosure process and the bank takes it back and puts it out in the market. So those are some of the terms that you want to familiarize yourself with. And distress just means, distress could be somebody going through a hardship and not necessarily behind in their mortgage, but, maybe a divorce, maybe a, health issue, maybe they need to relocate, or they can't afford to pay that mortgage no more. That means the stress that they're in a stress that they need to sell at a lower than market rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Javi, you want to chime in on that, or?
No, I think Ozzy covered it well. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty good description.
All right, good. So now that you mentioned distress and what people are going through right now, what are the possible effects of the people that are in forbearance? How's that going to affect investments?
Well, that's Javi.
Yeah. Go ahead, Javi.
Go ahead, Javi.
I'll chime in on this one. So anyone that's currently in forbearance cannot purchase another property. So if you're currently in forbearance in your primary residence, or if your primary residence and another investment property, let's say, and that investment property is in forbearance because that tenant stopped paying you, even though you're paying your primary residence and everything's fine, if you're on forbearance for any property that you own, you will not be able to purchase another property. You will have to be out of forbearance, show us proof, and us, I mean your financial lending institution, show us proof that you're out of forbearance, and then we'd be able to issue you a loan.
Gotcha. And then, I have one more question, and I want to get, the insight from each one of you guys. What is your personal, because we all have like a personal strategy. What personal strategy would you each share with us when we look into purchasing a possible investment property?
Will, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess my investment strategies have sort of changed over the years. I bought my first house, single family house, in 2011. It's a great time to buy. End of 2011, basically 2012. And I took on a lot of risk in buying that house because at the time I was basically spending all my money on the down payment. Anyway, market got better. I sold the house in 2014, made, decent chunk of change. And then I realized that this is my personal investment strategy, but I realized I could be overly aggressive on properties I was going to occupy. Because if for one reason or another, the market tanked, I still needed a place to live. So I did that a couple more times where I would buy a house that was, completely destroyed, fix it up, have, good amount of equity, obviously with the intent of living there. But as the market went up, I says, I'm not going to leave this equity stuck in the house. So I would sell it and pull out the equity. What that afforded me to do was, what I do now is basically I was able to put some money in the bank, and now I'm able to go out and do these short-term fix and flips. Whereas 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I wasn't able to do that because didn't have the capital to do so. So that's sort of been my strategy up to this point, and now it's sort of changing where I'm starting to look for a little multifamily to get into. So,
Ozzy?
Okay. Nice. Will, man, you touch on some great points there. We speak about investing here. We're talking about, buying a second property, and we're talking about buying another property to flip and stuff like that. But the number one investment and the way to get started in this is to buy your first property for yourself.
100%.
Yeah. You need to take the plunge, guys. Stop renting. Stop making other people rich. Stop talking the talk and go out there and just do it. Like Nike says, be a doer. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people out there like us that can have those questions answered for you. Don't stress about, excuses. They're just excuses, guys. So because there are a lot of plans, a lot of ways, a lot of opportunities and financing. I mean, you can go in there, guys, with zero down, seller contribution, all kind of grants from the government. There's so many different ways to get into investing. And once you have your first property, then it doesn't have to be your dream home, your forever home. That could be your next step to your catalyst to the next property you want to get, or in that sense, the way Javi did, Will did, and many do, when they sell that home, that's, especially if you live there 2 years, that's cash, tax-free money that you put it into your bank account that you can go ahead and reinvest that. You can put that to buying your next home and buy another property. And you can do that for as long as you want to continue doing that. So my strategy in investing does change along the way, but it definitely had its roots in the way Williams did as well.
Okay, great. Javi, before you give me your input, here's a question for you guys. Should I do it under my name or should I do it under a corporation? What's the best advice from you guys?
Javi, go.
I can answer that one. So there's definitely the option of purchasing it cash. Definitely your liability will be limited if you purchase the property under a corporation. So if you purchase it cash, I think Will and Ozzy will agree to always purchase it under a corporation to limit your liability. Any lawsuits or any litigations that might occur will limit your liability if you purchase the property cash. In reference to financing, if we look at the traditional conventional financing, you will not be able to put the property under a corporation name. Okay, so unfortunately that won't work out. You won't be able to with regular, like I said, traditional conventional financing. If you purchase a property through another option, which is private, a hedge fund or an equity fund, they will require you to put it under a corporation. So that's another option that we have when it comes to lending. Hard money is simple, just for you that don't know what it is. It's just individuals or a hedge fund. Let's say Carlos, George, and Madeline grab $1 million together and they say, hey, we want to go and we want to give hard money loans or private loans. So they ask for a down payment pretty large from an investor, like hopefully yourselves that are in this chat. And then they lend at 9%, 10% on the money, and those are loans. And those loans always have to be under a corporation. So Manny, to answer you, corporations are always the best way. If you don't have another option and you're financing it through a banking institution, through conventional lending, then you have to put it under your personal name.
Okay, great. So if the people that are attending the call right now, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll try to answer it right now. Besides that, is there anything else you guys want to add before we end the call?
So I wanted to touch base a little bit on the form of investing, because Will said something that was impressive, or not impressive, but it stuck to me, that the methods of investing changed for him. And I agree with you. I agree hugely. When the market crashed and the Great Recession came in 2008, 2009, I remember starting 2010, I started buying properties and I started doing the flips. Man, I was making a killing. I was doing flips and making more money than I ever thought I would ever make on a flip. I was limited. I didn't have so much liquidity like anybody that comes out of a recession. So I was able to do 1, 2 a year. And still that 1 or 2 a year gave me a great return on my money. Then all of a sudden they dried up a little bit. And I was like, wow, I got to change my investment approach. And I bought a business. And then I got a partner, I bought the business, and then that was exciting. That was a new thing. And I invested my money into a business, and that worked out great. So always be open to the market changes and always be open to the economy changes. Then after now, flipping I've noticed has been great again for me. You know, and the areas, sometimes you might say, hey, Miami-Dade might not be my best option. Let me go to Broward. Let me go to whatever areas that you feel are good opportunities. That's definitely something that I've noticed does change through time. So don't lose track of that. You might hear somebody tell you, hey, it's not a good opportunity to flip right now. And it's because they're focused on trying to flip in. And again, I've said Coral Gables so many times, they're trying to flip in Coral Gables. Maybe the market in Coral Gables isn't good to flip, but maybe that area east of Coral Gables is great to flip because they're starting to remodel those homes and those seem like hot properties. So always be open to changing your outlook on investing. And just like Ozzy said, you know, start off with your house. I'll be honest, guys, I'm looking to rent my house out this year so that I could buy another house this year. So this year, I'm not going to go and buy a long-term investment because I'm going to go buy another house and I'm going to rent out mine and include it in my real estate portfolio. Yeah. Nothing better than owning your first home, renting it out, upgrading, you keep going from there. And that's a great way to start investing.
All right. Thanks for the advice, Javi. That's great. Those are great points. Yeah, so from what I'm looking here, nobody else has questions. I want to take a moment and thank William, Ozzy, Javi for getting on the call, for giving me good advice and teaching us all, you know, what we should be doing, what we should be looking at. And hopefully, you know, we'll be having another class soon, and hopefully you all attend. And I just want to thank all of you. Okay.
Awesome, man. Thank you, guys.
Man. Appreciate the opportunity.
And if anybody else needs more info, we haven't let out all our secrets out in this Zoom, so contact us. We're here to help. And Manny, thank you, and thank everybody on this chat. Thank you, Will and Ozzy, for the opportunity.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Likewise. All right, guys. Thank you. And like I said, you don't, like Javi said, feel free to reach out to us for any other questions that you may come up that you forgot to answer here. All right. Stay safe,
100%.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Dale.
Bye-bye.